This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Please note that this episode contains depictions of self-harm and suicide. For something a little less heavy, please feel free to check out one of our other episodes.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about comic books, costumes, facts, boots, and other stuff.
In this week's issue, Mr. Miracle, Part 2.
Welcome into Bros, Foes, and Heroes. I'm Zach, joined as always by the miraculous one. I got it right this time.
Man.
Mr. Mike.
That seems like you're really over-promising, and I'm going to under-deliver.
Well, last week I had problems saying it, and I think I said that you were without mackerel.
You know, I love this coffee cup I have.
Yeah.
I stole it from my wife.
And that's why you love it?
Well, no, because the lid
you're a thief.
The lid fits very tight, right? Because on the Yetis or whatever, they don't always fit so tight.
No, that is true. Some of them
they kind of fall off. And so I like this one because it fits really tight. And then it's got this cool little leather thing, you know, that you hold it with. And it provides a grip because, again, the Yeti ones, they're very slippery.
No, that is true. This one, I have an old Arctic one that is the Yeti kind of clone. And it is very...
My point here was, though, that this was given to her by a tax firm, right? As congratulations for graduating a leadership class.
Oh, okay, I thought you was going to say like, "Hey, congrats on taxes."
I'm assuming they have some money.
Oh yeah, probably.
Right? Why are they giving out polar camels? That's the name of this one. It's a polar camel.
Here's the thing: polar camel just might have had a better deal on the leather wrap.
Oh, I'm sure they. Yeah, it says something. I'm afraid I'm going to pour it right in my lap.
And so Mike is honestly holding the glass above his head as he's trying to read the bottom of it.
China, do not microwave. That's a good point. Don't microwave China.
The country nor the
hand wash only.
The dishware. I made the mistake.
Oh shit! This says hand wash only. I do nothing but put it through the dishwasher.
You just realized that? I love how we had that realization right here on the show.
No idea.
There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I could help you out.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, now you're going to hand wash that, right? No, you're still going to run it through the dishwasher.
Nope.
We are carrying...
I'm just going to go to the tax firm and ask for another one when this one wears out. Hey, listen, I've been paying my taxes. Can you give me another one of those,
please? Gave me one a couple years ago. I thought this was going to be like every year I pay my taxes.
I think I'm attributed some pretty good leadership skills. If you can go ahead and give that to me, that'd be great.
We are going to pick up where we left off with the last one. Again, it's kind of the theme for the entire month, and that is 2017's Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads. And we are covering issues 4, 5, and 6 today, which will bring us up through the halfway point of our story.
Big old Berta on this cover.
Berta makes me think of Birdo from the Mario games. You remember like the Super Mario Brothers 2?
Bird thing?
No, okay. You remember the second Mario game for NES?
Yeah, sure.
I love how you said sure, like you.
No, I do absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
The pink dinosaur that shot eggs out. His name is Berto.
Oh, okay.
Also,
no, I did say I had an NES.
No, I know. Just sometimes when people
I can tell you where I got it. The whole thing. I got it from Target.
Okay.
And the reason I bought it from Target
is it because they were sold out of it somewhere else?
Nope. Oh. It's because they weren't sold out of them at the time. The NES was easy to get at one time, right?
All right. But there was the video game crash in '85.
Sure. So I'm talking NES was what, like
86, 87? It was a couple of years. It was right after that.
It was right after
It's the first one that kind of,
But the reason I bought it at Target is because they didn't question returns. And so at the time I was working at video stores because that's what I grew up working in. And we had a shrink wrap machine. And so I'd play the game till I finished it. I'd shrink wrap it, take it back, and trade it in for another game.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my NES experience. Yeah, and I was running a beta only store at the time. Yeah.
Fish?
Yeah, the only beta fish. That's it. And we couldn't even put them next to each other. It was terrible. They'd fight. Yeah, it was video, beta videos.
Yeah.
So nobody was coming in that damn store.
So you just
so I
played
just sat there and played what is it? Motocross, Moto Rider,
Excite Bike.
Excite Bike. I played Excite Bike a lot.
Yeah,
and then some Mario. Yeah, and I was very excited when Mario 2 came.
So
Mario 3 was probably my favorite.
That is my favorite too. So I've talked.
Well, with the exception of the 64 version.
Okay,
that one's really good.
Yes, the 64 one is really good. My grandma and I played the third one together a lot, so that's my favorite one too, with the different worlds and like there's different cheats on.
That's the one with the little map, right?
Yeah, and you would run into the Hammer Bros randomly on there. But no, so Birdo is the pink dinosaur from the second one.
I miss those simplistic consoles and games.
See, well, okay, so the Switch is kind of like that, but I will tell you that one of the more recent Mario games I played, it is platformery still, but it's either me being older or it is tougher now. But it's fun still.
I like 2D
and
stuff.
So it's still like it's the 3D character, but it's still like 2D in like the platform. Like you're not in a 3D world on some of them. They did remake the Super Mario RPG from the Super Nintendo a couple months ago.
You're never gonna see me play an RPG. Just won't happen.
Ever?
Nope.
No, okay.
Don't care.
You can't. No, there has to be.
I don't want to talk to a mage. I don't want to have to find a health pack.
But here's the thing. That's just not RPGs aren't always involving. Like you can have like a modern RPG or a
So you have to visit a politician rather than a mage.
Well,
or something. But it's the same concept.
It's the same kind of mechanics. It's just a role playing game. Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I played it one time when I was a kid.
Did you not like it?
I guess I didn't because I never played it again. It's the same thing with Risk.
You don't like Risk?
No. No. That takes like 9 hours.
Well, aside from it being long.
Plus it's depressing.
It's just you.
I'm going to nuke the rest of the world or whatever,
Only if you want to. I mean, well yeah. I guess kind of in Risk you have to. That is the goal, is to take over the rest of Risk.
No, Matthew.
Or the rest of the map.
Matthew that works here, he loves Risk. Loves it, but plays it online. I didn't realize it was an online thing.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of people on Steam and stuff play it. Yeah.
And he says it's fast now.
Yeah, well, because it's all on computer, like you don't have to wait to like, let me draw this card. Let me lean over and move my, like it's just all very automated. Is that a duck call?
That's what I think of it. Yeah.
I think it was a duck call.
That's what I think.
All right. We're going to move on past that. I will tell you this last piece.
My favorite video games. Can I tell you real quick?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But I said I love 2D.
Yeah.
Ghosts and Goblins.
Okay. That game's tough.
Ghouls and Goblins, Ghosts and Goblins, whatever it was. Yeah, I love that game.
Okay.
Contra.
Oh, that game's tough too.
Contra.
That's where the Konami code's from.
There are a lot of likes.
You know about the Konami code. Well,
up, down, left, right, whatever.
Yeah. But it was left in there on accident because it's the testing code. Like the game was so tough for them to test and play through that they added it so that the actual programmers testing it could play through, and they forgot to take it out, and so that's how they
Joust.
Oh, that's okay.
What?
Nothing.
Say it.
What's
wrong with Joust?
There's nothing wrong with Joust.
You got to flap a lot.
Yeah, you're flying on an ostrich.
In hell or whatever it is.
Yeah, I've never understood the landscape of it.
It's a terrible.
Trying to pop balloons.
Yeah, it's a terrible world.
I mean, it's good.
Think about if you lived in
It's an arcade classic.
What if you lived in any of those worlds? Like you had to pop balloons on the back of an ostrich. That just doesn't seem like a place I want to live.
Like we play Mario, but
maybe you don't know any different.
That's true. Well, if that's what you're used to, that's all you know.
Yeah, I got to get these balloons popped.
Yeah,
you got to let me go, man. I got to get these balloons popped by 5,
or else I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know what happens. It's like the guy in Lost. If I don't push the button, what happens?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We talked about this is going to be the end of this tangent, but it's brought me up. To start off, we talked about.
I was never a GoldenEye fan.
Are we talking about Friend 64?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, okay, I played
know.
it back then, and I loved it then.
I know that puts me in a different category.
And the pause music is awesome still.
You ever seen the videos where the guy came up with the pause music?
I love that. But they also like whatever you call that, when you remake something.
Re-screwed it up?
They repurposed it. I can't think of the word.
Reboot?
They remade, but also, for like the Xbox and stuff like that. And I played it, and it's cool now that if I can use the current day controllers, but like plugging up the N64 and booting it up, it is tough, and I don't know how I played it. It is not fun to play on the old 64
It
anymore.
is hard. It was a very hard game, and I didn't like it because it was just so much to it. Same deal with like Resident Evil. I didn't like it because you were not always going forward.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I didn't like. I want simple mechanics.
I got you.
Tecmo Bowl, I'll take it.
I love
Thank
Tecmo
you very
Bowl.
much.
All right, so that was our video game talk. Hope you enjoyed that.
Hope you enjoyed that.
Let's
Come back
go
and see us
ahead.
again next week.
Let's go ahead and dive back into Mr. Miracle again. Issues 4, 5, and 6 today.
Sure you don't want to talk about like playing cards or something?
No, I mean
for a while?
we got to save something for the rest of the month.
Gotcha.
Just a kind of quick overlap to, I guess, catch you up if you haven't. Essentially, New Genesis and Apocalypse are at war. Orion, who is now the ruler of New Genesis, has gone crazy. I think it's kind of safe to say, mad with power. Scott,
That's perfect.
Scott, who is our main character, Mr. Miracle here, there's obviously something wrong with him inside. Like we all have problems with.
Sure.
You know, whether it be there's something he's dealing with either mentally, or he thinks here that maybe Darkseid has infected him. Like this, there's a reason why I'm making these choices of self-harm, or I'm forgetting these things, or I'm, you know, things don't appear to be as they are. It's not because of my mental health and stuff. Like, it's got to be because Darkseid did this. There's a disconnect between the two of them there. And we ended the last issue with Orion just beating Scott senseless while telling him that to look upon his face, for he is the face of God, as he's kind of full on entered crazy person mode. Aside from that, they killed Granny Goodness, and Oberon's been dead. We found that out too.
Cancer.
Exactly.
Hey, you know, the mental health thing you were talking about, that's very poignant. In the fact that we do often like blame all the outside stuff. It's never us, you know, and that's very poignant.
Well, that's what about this whole thing when I try to explain to this, and I can tell you issue 5, there's a lot of issues and parts of this book that kind of get to me, and issue 5 is one of them that does. But one of the things that is very poignant about this whole thing when I tell somebody about it is, you know, usually they don't know about Mr. Miracle, so it's kind of hard to explain and be like, oh, yeah, no, his superpowers, he escapes everything. But there's something that's just so poignant and not lost on me on the fact of he's a super escape artist who can't escape his own demons. Kind of in a way. Like, even though he can get away from everything, he can't get away from
and
it's just nice kind of, you know. So we will open up issue 4.
Well, it brings that superhero world into the real world.
Exactly. And speaking of into the real world, I do love a lot of these real world scenes between Scott and Barda. It's a nice little bit of humor, but also kind of humanizing moment for all of this. So we pick up in issue 4 where they are back at their apartment on Earth, and you can see that it looks like Barda's been taking care of Scott. He's got bandages all over his face. He still has his wrist wraps up too. So it's, you know, not too, we're still probably just a couple months removed from the start of the book.
He looks rough.
He does look rough. And all we just hear is, again, I'll bring it up. It's the Kirby dialogue from the previous that matchup with. So this is issue 4 of 2017's run. The starting text here you can find in issue 4 of 1971's run, just taken verbatim. And it just kind of sets the scenes a lot of way, and sometimes makes it seem out of place or even fits and frames very well. And it's all just really cool. But we start the scene where, as we said, Scott looks like he's been through the ringer, and all of a sudden Barda is angry. We don't know we hear a boom, like a boom tube has gone up. Somebody's arrived at their apartment. Barda is angry, and we just hear, walk away, Barda, walk away. Like she's yelling at whoever has shown up there. Scott realizes somebody's here because he hears, I am here as the voice of High Father. And he's realizing it's Light Ray. What does he want? And he kind of gets up and gets out of bed to go see.
Light Ray.
Exactly. To go see what he wants. Here's another thing. We talk about it. He's wearing a Green Lantern t-shirt here.
The Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Not the Yellow Lantern.
No.
He just kind of shows up though, and he's like, hey, Light Ray, you know, like, what's up? Because he's just, the ridiculous of it all, I think, is not lost on Scott. And he's just, while Bart is pissed off that they're, you know, already there for whatever it is, Scott's just kind of like, yeah, of course this would happen. All right, what do you want? I'm going to get me some coffee. Like, he's just not fazed by this at all. And Light Ray tells him, General Free, it is now declared that you are an agent of Darkseid, an enemy of the free and proud people of New Genesis. And after Light Ray tells him that, there's just a panel of like him blankly staring at Light Ray, and he just goes like, cool, I'm going to get coffee. Just like, all right, this is what it is. Barda just smacks Light Ray upside the head. And, Light Ray's just like, hey, I'm just a member of the High family. Or as a member of the High family, General Free has the choice of execution or a trial. That's, those are your two choices here. Mm-hmm. And Barda just keeps after everything, he says. She's just like, damn it, Light Ray. He's not an agent of Darkseid. She's just like, she's upset at him for even coming there and doing that.
Yeah.
And Scott, in a nice little joke, I think, too, especially after we got the last panel of Orion going on and on about, look at the face of God. Is Scott's just casually pouring, coffee into his coffee mug that shows I am God, as he just, it's just like, as serious as Orion takes this, Scott is the complete opposite about all of it.
Yeah.
But he tells him essentially like, yeah, I'll take a trial. That's fine. And he's like, he tells him, can we just do it here? Like, I don't want to have to go to New Genesis.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
like, I got a show tomorrow.
Just get it over with. Come on.
He's like, I got things to do here. I'm waiting on a delivery. Like, and Light Ray's just like, it's your choice. You have that privilege. And then Barda just smacks him again. And I do love the...
and she's not just smacking him.
She is punching the mess out of him.
Punching the crap out of him.
And she kind of...
Bloody nose.
She kind of gets him one in the stomach and he doubles over. And he says, you little... And it's just the expletive, but we can only assume. Yeah. And that is when, obviously, she kicks it into another gear and tells him to say it again. As you see, her fists are now just bloody.
She looks a little pissed.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Just a little.
We leave that to then see the two of them are just kind of sitting on the couch as they're watching TV.
It's obviously nighttime.
And like, they're just sitting there asking, and it's another very funny, just kind of human moment in this. And she's like, how many people do you think will be here for this trial? And he's like, I don't know. Orion, Light Ray's going to be there, a security guard like you and me. And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, well, maybe I'll run to the store and I'll get a veggie tray or something. Like she goes,
she goes from being so pissed to be well, like, we got to do something for the folks that are coming over.
Yeah. We get they're watching the Godfried again, who's the late night show host. And it's so the president's got himself in quite a tight bind. Yes, indeed. It's like written like that Carson stuff. And I kind of like that. I think it's safe to say that, to get out of this, he doesn't need a miracle. He needs Mr. Miracle. And it's just shown like they're making, corny little jokes as he kind of falls off. Then we see his next.
Well, you also get another Darkseid Is.
We do get another Darkseid Is of the impending doom that's kind of coming. We get Scott's next trick, which turns out to be him escaping being in a barrel that was hit by a train. Another little tidbit, because again, we get references to the world around him without it. They're Wayne Enterprises for the train. So it's always nice little DC nods of where it feels like this is happening in that same world, but we're focusing just on Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
Then we get the trial itself. And
they had to go to New Genesis.
No, they're doing it.
Oh, they're doing it there.
They're doing it there. That was, he had the right. Yeah.
The boom tube.
He was just like, hey, can we just do it here since I have that show and I'm waiting on there's a funny thing. They're waiting on a delivery. It was brought up. But so Orion boom tubes in, and as soon as Barda sees him, we got a veggie tray. And sure enough, I love, it's the picture of, a lot of people got pissed about this. I think it's hilarious to try to use something to break up the tension that's in here. As silly as this.
A lot of people got pissed about what? The veggie tray?
You'll see later. Yeah.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, people are weird. And
people
so
pick the weirdest things to get outraged about.
I love like he's there, and as soon as Orion showed up, like Scott's just like sitting or standing, and Orion's like sit. He's like, all right, sitting. So it's just like a joke from earlier. Orion basically tells him like, all right, the audience may also be seated. Here's what we're gonna do.
What audience?
Barda, Light Ray, and the security guy.
Okay.
That's all of them. It's the 5 of them for this trial. Because Orion informs them that, I have to tell you, where is this at? I'm sorry. I'll just read. It is important to clarify at this point that though we are gods, even gods are bound by laws of the source. Do you not agree? And he's like, yeah, we're all bound by something, is what he tells them. And he goes, yes, exactly that. He's like, and the laws of the source dictate that in a trial of good, or of a god, the High Father is responsible for appointing the accuser, the defender, and the judge. Well, given these laws, I appoint myself to the position of accuser, defender, and judge.
Jeez.
Right?
What a turd.
So, and they just kind of accept that. And he's like, all right, let's go ahead and do this. He's like, will you begin? And Scott, before they begin, goes, hold on, I'm going to get a carrot. And there's panels of him getting up, walking over, taking a dip, taking a bite.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. Like,
I love that. I love it because he just shows his absolute disgust for the whole thing.
Exactly. Of like, yes, this is ridiculous.
If I'm going to do this, I'm going to eat a carrot.
Exactly. He's like, you're judge, jury, and executioner. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Yeah.
And I find it really ridiculous that he has to wear a suit the whole time, right? Like,
I'm thinking. I like to think that they just showed up from his gig, and and he's like, well, I don't have time to change.
Either that, or they said this is a formal thing. You have to wear your suit. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the way I took it. Yeah.
So,
you think that's ranch?
Yeah, no, it's got to be ranch. Okay. Yeah, for sure. That's usually what it's in most veggie trays.
Yeah.
He tells him that, as we're all aware, that Darkseid has the anti-life equation. It would suggest at this point that the war continues in our own minds. Where is he? Oh, he's just rambling on, and Bart is like, all right, where are you going with this? Like, we aren't here to sit and listen to you gab all day. And Orion goes, do I need to ask you to leave? And she goes, and that's when Scott's like, Barta, it's like, let him have it. And fine.
Sure.
It's all, nobody wants to be there. They're just all kind of disgusted with it. And he says, every statement is either true or false. If it weren't, it wouldn't be a statement. General Free, I'm going to list a number of statements, and you will identify the statements as either true or false. Which there's already a little bit of fallacy in that.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But he's just like, okay. And so something that's really well done while they're doing all this is when we have that distortion of reality of where you can't tell and it feels like Scott's off. We get that old kind of like, VCR weird traction part.
Yeah, you get the traction.
And it's used very well throughout this whole scene of doing it.
Tracking.
And he tells him that, I'm interested in beliefs. I'm not interested in your doubts. That's why I want to know just true or false. And he's like, all right, we begin. You confess that you believe Darkseid had infected you. True or false? And he goes, true. And he goes, all right.
And that's while he's got a tracking issue.
Yeah. And then he goes, you accuse the High Father of being similarly infected. Like when he was telling him, like, maybe he got to Dad, maybe he got to you. And he goes, true. And he goes, the High Father is an agent of Darkseid. And he goes, I don't know.
And he gets really messed up.
Yeah, when he has that doubt, it's like you can see like he's unaware. And he's like, again, your lack of knowledge will not save or condemn you. Only your beliefs can. So he, tries to restate it. And he's telling me, he's like, come on, how am I supposed to know if he was or not? And he goes, tell me what you believe. So we get this nice little...
Is that what you should be tried on? Your beliefs?
That's what he's doing here on this.
That's rough.
So he goes, then again, what do you believe? The High Father is an agent of Darkseid, true or false? And he goes, true. I don't know. Maybe true, because he's just telling him.
Sure.
And then he goes, all right. So he's asked it again, the question again. And this time he just says true, because he knows what he's going for. He goes, I'm an agent of Darkseid. True.
Yeah, and he's messed up again.
Yeah, and he's like, you can tell like it's kind of knocking Scott off a bit. And he goes, you are. And he says, false. And he goes, an agent of Darkseid would deny being an agent. True. So an agent would also would try to make me think that it was me. True. Like he's basically painting him to a corner of where everything he and it comes back around to where, therefore you could be an agent of Darkseid.
Yeah.
True. Right? Like, and he's getting more and more frustrated.
It's like the Red Scare.
You can kind of tell on his face, and he's just kind of losing it. And he goes, you killed Granny Goodness. And Scott says, false. And he's like, all right, Big Barta killed Granny Goodness. True. And he's like, you saw Light Ray kill Forager. True. Forager deserved to die. And that's where he's like, I don't know. And then he gets yelled at again for, I don't want your, about that time, we hear a ding. Again, I love that they have these moments to just kind of break up this super heavy tension between the two. And it's the doorbell goes off, and Bart is like, oh, it's the door. I got that. The delivery. And she just comes and throws the box down on their table. And she goes, I think it's that microphone for the machine. Yeah, okay. Like, it's just so randomly.
Yeah.
And then we just go, it shows us
just the box.
Just the box. And then we go right back into the trout. Like, I love these beats of comedy to kind of break up the seriousness of it. So then he tells him, like, Orion,
I wish they could do this in movies.
Oh, right. It's so great. And he's just like, all of this, it's a trap. Like, he tells him that. Like, I feel like all of this is. And he's like, I'm the High Father, and you will address me as such. And he tells him, I escape from traps. And then Bart is kind of getting ready, and she goes, "Say go, Scott," and we go. Like they're getting ready to kind of like, we're not going to have to deal with this. And then kind of Light Ray kind of builds up his little like his Light Ray. And he's like, "Yeah, say go." It's kind of like a little threatening there. And Orion says, "Of course it's a trap. Everything's a trap. We're all bound. Remember, Scott Free, we're all bound to something." And he uses what he told him earlier to come back to him. And kind of Scott hangs his head knowing that he used his own words against him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Scott," and he goes, "My name's not Scott Free." And he goes, "That's just what Granny called me when I was little, because I kept getting out and running after she hurt me. She'd capture me again and she'd laugh and she'd call me Scott Free. And my name's not Mr. Miracle either." He's like telling him like, that's just the name of this guy, the performer who I met here on Earth.
Yeah.
Like I just took over his thing. He's just like, my real name, I don't even know. Like I should have asked High Father, but he never gave me one and he was young and I never asked him. I don't know. And he's just like, he's having this moment. He's like, he didn't even give me a name. Yeah. Why didn't he? It's a very he's having that moment, just realizing over him being called Scott Free and thinking about his name for a moment.
It was just a moment of realization.
Exactly. And so you can
just like do not put in the dishwasher.
Exactly. Yeah. And so Scott just kind of sinks, and Orion uses that moment to kind of start asking questions again. So he's like, "You hate our father, true or false?" Well, obviously in this moment, like he's like, "True, fine."
Yeah.
And he's like, "You hate me." And he kind of turns and looks him dead in the eyes on that one and says, "True." And he's like, "You hate New Genesis." True. "You hate Apocalypse." True. "You hate your career." True. Like he's just trying, you hate your childhood. You hate your life. True. "You hate yourself." True. "You hate God." True. Like he's just going through all of this. And he's like, right now, all you feel is hate. Hate made you doubt my reign as High Father. True. Hate made you accuse me of treason. True. Hate made you doubt everything. It made you escape everything. Hate made you kill yourself. True. Like he's just going on and on. He's like, "You hate you. The anti-life equation is hate." True. "You are the anti-life equation," is what he finally says. Wow. And he's just like, I, and Scott snaps. Rightfully so. Just kind of like when you see somebody, like we've all been there, either the one ourselves or watching somebody else do it, when they put the finger in somebody else's chest and they just keep poking and poking and poking until it's not enough.
Yep.
Or until it's too much.
Yep.
And Scott lashes out, and he does, and he knocks Orion to the ground to the point of where you can see, and I love the way that they draw it, is you can see the general shock and fear in Orion's eyes of not realizing like, oh shit, I did something. And then the realization of Scott, realizing that he acted out of character and it just crushing him after that then too. We get the veggie tray though again.
Well, he goes right into Barta's arms.
Yeah, and he's just sobbing.
He's broken.
We do have such a heavy moment, and again, I like it. The veggie tray, just to kind of a little bit. Orion goes over, grabs a carrot, eats it, and he goes. And I love the way they drew this too, because they make it look like he's doing such a hard thing.
Yeah,
like it's such a strain on him as he goes, "Guilty. You were judged guilty," and he tells him, "As I cannot contain you, Mr. Miracle, you will report to my throne in 3 days, where I will perform your execution." And so we end as Scott is just like crying in Barta's arms as everybody just kind of just leaves to set the scene.
Yeah.
And it's a very telling at the end of it's just Scott just goes, "I can't," because he's trying to tell her that he can't escape. And just, "I know." Yeah. And that's where it ends.
Yeah. That is super heavy.
Yeah. So it sets up just this. So he is now gone from obviously something is wrong with him to now being accused of.
Well, now everything's wrong around him.
Yeah. It's not just him now. Everything in life is wrong. It can't just be something that he can just be like, "Oh, no. It's something else. This did it," or I can just put it off and not think about it.
He has to confront it.
Exactly. I have the war to fight. I have this. No, now, you're going to die in 3 days because of this.
I gotta go get in a barrel on train tracks, whatever. Whatever it is. Yeah.
And so it brings us to something very real and very heavy for Scott. And oddly enough, the perfect place to take a break. So when we come back, we'll wrap up with issues 5 and 6 of Mr. Miracle right here on Bros, Foes, and Heroes.
Enjoy this word from Polar Camel.
welcome back in. I know Mike always laughs when I do that. It's just because I kind of have to like get in a zone.
Yeah. No. And again, I'm not laughing at you. It's the process, and I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like every single show that I do, I'm like, hey there, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of
it's like the buildup. It's like a sports reference. Pitchers with their wind up. You got to get that wind.
Well, it's like taking a big breath before you breathe out. You know, I mean, you have to. Okay, I'm in this spot now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going up to wrap up our part 2 of Mr. Miracle, covering issues 5 and 6 here to bring us to the halfway point. We just found out that Scott has been sentenced to execution by his brother, or his brother,
his cousin.
Quotes, yeah. We get the first of kind of there's a lot of Jack Kirby like Easter eggs through this. If you want to look through it. This one is very on the nose. It's very
it's his actual,
Yeah. What we have here, and there's a lot of moments, and a couple in this issue for sure, of that kind of that do some revisionist history in a way when it comes to Jack Kirby and just things about him. What we have here is Scott and Barda are essentially enjoying his last day on Earth. Is what it is. That's what issue 5 is, of them together.
Sure.
And there's a couple moments in this book that just kind of get to me. And one of them is this page here. It's the very first one. And so they're at, what is it? What is the theater with the Walk of Fame and all the stars on there?
Grauman's Chinese Theater.
So that's the theater that's there. And they're standing on the walk, a Walk of Fame essentially. And it's, Mr. Miracle and Big Barter there because they are getting their own. Like it shows Scott like putting his hands down on like a new one, and Bart is there too, and they're all waving. And there's some dialogue that goes on between the two of them. And I always like it that when Mr. Miracle talks, it's always yellow and red, and Barda it's blue and red. So are blue and yellow, so you can kind of tell who's who through this without having to see them and know the conversation going on. And Scott kind of tells her like, you could ask me, and I would stay. I'd fight. Instead of that, that's all you got to say is stay. I go to war. I swear I do it. And she's just like, I can't, Scott. Like I told you, I can't be that. I'm not your way out. You got to do this for yourself. So she's like, all I can do is be your wife. Come on. Tomorrow's your last day. What do you want to do? And that sets up the rest of the issue. But the visuals.
She's very happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I guess she's putting on that front for him.
She's trying to put on that front from him. She has a moment in this one too. And the bit of revisionist history we get is Stanley does have a star on the Walk of Fame. Jack Kirby does not, obviously. But what it does here instead is it remembers it with Jack having one instead. And there's a nice little moment of like Mr. Miracle's hand in Kirby's.
Yeah. And I like how Kirby's is bigger than his.
Exactly.
Just by a little bit.
Yeah. But kind of like as like a father and son kind of in a way.
Yeah.
But
Creator.
It has.
It's almost like the
Da Vinci
thing.
And that's what I think it's meant for, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And it has his signature there that they took from something. And the 1972, I'm pretty sure is when this issue would have come out then. So that's why the signature is 72. Now the quote underneath it is a quote attributed to Jack Kirby from, I can't remember who told, and I'm sorry for giving credit this, but there's a story that an artist told at one point in time that he'd gone to a convention, at one point in time that Kirby was at.
Yeah.
And he was showing him all of this work, and he loved all the Kirby stuff, and he really wanted to work in comics. And like Kirby was looking at him and stuff, and he's like, dude, why do you want to do that? Like, go draw for this, go do that. And it's like, you don't want to do comics, kid. Comics will break your heart.
Yeah.
And that's the quote that's on there.
Yeah. Does it say 100 comics will break your heart?
No, it just says kid.
Oh, kid. Okay.
Comics will break your heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
Look at all the stuff that he was not allowed to do. Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's a tough place to be too when you're an artist, but you're in a corporate environment like that,
Yeah, where you're trying to create new stuff, and it's being and you just kind of have no control.
They just don't want it. They don't want your creativity or whatever.
And it's very fitting that it's like this is the issue with a lot of Jack Kirby. So you would think if Jack shows up, who would show up a lot then too in this?
Yeah.
It would be Funky Flashman. So it'd be Stan. The thing is, Funky here in this book is not like the Funky that we met.
Okay.
In a sense, he loves to use those big words. He loves to oversell things. Like we saw it a little bit with how he introed.
Yeah.
He's still there, but you'll see a little bit later, not in this issue, you see a little bit later, he's not as big of a buffoon and idiot as he was, before.
Yeah.
And it's used later on to attempt, I think, by the pair at least a little bit to mend, or at least to make it this relationship just a little bit more palatable.
Sure, I get that. Yeah.
So the two of them kind of get back in the limo as they're leaving the theater, and Funky's in there with them, and he's like, all right, that couldn't have gone better, guys. Here's what he goes, oh, things couldn't be better. Working now for New Genesis doing PR. He's telling them like, hey, I'm doing PR. It's going great. The only thing that stinks though is, you're Mr. Miracle. You're super popular, but you're about to die. That's going to be a big problem for us, right? Like he's just kind of telling him this. And Scott and Bart are just like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Like he's like, all right, I got a problem, or I got a solution for this. Now here's what you got to do, right? Funky's going to tell you, just listen to old Funky. Here's the angle you're going to take. Suicide. Oof. He's like, oh, you're on the record. You tried it once. So this, you said that you tried to. So why not just lean into that, right? This is what you're going to do. This time it's you putting it in your own hand. You're taking it out of everybody else's. Like, that's what kind of Funky's doing. Yeah.
Can you tell me why Scott has like a full face of facial hair now?
Just showing the time passing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
like
right.
he's okay. Well, here's the thing too. I don't know about you, and I think it's part of it is obviously Scott not feeling like himself and stuff too. Okay. Like it's slowly growing over time.
Growing. Yeah, I get it now. Okay.
I think mentally,
well, the depression.
How unkempt he is.
You're not exactly taking care of yourself.
He's not worried about that. Yeah. So like that's what Funky's doing, and both of them are like, "What are you like? This is
sure."
And he's like, "See, that's your way out of it. Got it." And he's like, "We have another like kind of distortion over this whole talk too. Like, we don't know what's real and what's not, but we show the two of them. They go back to their hotel room or to their condo, and they decide, hey, why not last down Earth?
Yeah,
time for a little sexy time. Makes sense." I will say this is a place to do it. There's a lot of religious, what do you call it? Imagery.
Imagery, iconography.
Yeah, especially since, and it makes sense because Scott there is a biblical, God's son kind of aspect to it.
Sure.
But even in the sexy time, I felt like there was just a little bit. His mask, obviously, nicely used too, because you can't show cartoon or comic penis because people will lose their mind. They did it for Batman and Batman Damned.
Did they?
Yes. So have you not heard this story?
They showed Batman.
So DC made like a book. It was called DC Black Label, and it was supposed to be more mature, more content, stuff like that. And there was just a scene of where it's like Batman just like changing like out of one to another. And it's just seen over, and they just drew like the shadow of his. Yeah. And everybody lost their minds. They had to recall it, go back, black it out, and send it out without the
weird
Batpeen silhouette.
Batpeen.
Yeah. Anyway.
No.
I always love Barda has him tied up to the bed, and he tells her, "I can always escape," and she goes, "Oh, can you now?" And it's just a nice little tease, and then we get. I love how that they did. It's just obviously not like connected, but it does a good job of showing it and still keeping that
eyes and
what's going on.
Faces.
Yeah. You know what's going on. And this, you might be like, man, that is a lot of panels for this.
That is.
It'll be important later.
Okay.
We go and see that they've gone to the graveyard to see Oberon one last time. They take him flowers. And that's where we see the last name Kurtzberg, which was Jack Kirby's real last name. I love that they're trying to figure out they're gonna, where they're headed. They need to head. They live in California, and they need to get on the 101 to head downtown. And Barda asks her mother box because they use it like an Alexa, like, "Hey, how long?" And she's like 73 minutes, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, every hour's rush hour. Like, what is up with this?"
Sure.
And then she goes, "Mother box, how long would it take for us just to boom there?" And it's just like 3 seconds. But here it goes. Earth-to-Earth boom tube travel holds the possibility of shearing the fabric of space-time, possibly critically wounding your current reality. And Bart is just like, 73 minutes? It might be worth it. Like, it's just the kind of... Yeah. There's another really funny moment, a really dark kind of humor moment, but the two of them are driving to wherever they're headed, and Scott's kind of just like, "Hey, do we have a song?" And Bart is like, "We met in like the X pits. Like they're these torture pits. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Do we have a song?
Yeah.
We met to the sound or to the moans of the damned, is what she says. And Scott just goes like, "Oh yeah, hey Motherbox, can you play Moans of the Damned? Like that's the song." And the Motherbox asks him to specify, and he goes, "The Pits, about 10 years back." And it starts playing. You just see, "No, God help me. Why? God, make it stop." Please. Like it's people just like begging.
That's the soundtrack.
And they're just laughing. There's like, the memories kind of.
It's a soundtrack for their road trip.
It is. I love the fact, like, obviously it's done to extreme variance here.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just showing you, like it is with all of us, it's just two messed up people who, like, found a way to.
Yeah.
And it's the things that they bond over.
Absolutely.
And I think it's hilarious in that. The fact that they're loving. There's also one that somebody pointed out when I was looking through and researching this where it says, yes, yes, yes. Either somebody is really into it or maybe that's Granny who's super excited.
Could be.
They go out to a diner and he has his favorite sandwich. They go and
What's
they
his
look at a
favorite
fountain.
sandwich?
It is where it's a number
Looks like
19.
a pastrami.
No, he has a cup of cabbage soup with it. Does it say the sandwich? It just says number 19.
Oh, okay.
He just says this is the best sandwich in all the world.
Best.
Yeah, but he doesn't say what. But a cup of cabbage with it. They go to a fountain.
Cup of cabbage.
Yeah, they go to a fountain. They go to like a carnival. Like they're just spending time together.
They want a Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I love there's this point where he is terrible. Oh, he's wearing a Flash t-shirt. Like it's all like, again, like it's the world exists,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and at this fair, they're throwing baseballs and all the stuffed animals.
All the plushies are all like the DC heroes and stuff. And he keeps throwing and missing. And he tells her like, "Hey, I made you a promise on our honeymoon. I promised you I was going to win one of these. Like, I'm going to do it." And he's like, "You're getting that prize." And he's like, "For all the money." And he throws and misses it. And it shows him taking a picture and her holding it. And he's like, "See, a promise kept." And she goes, "I'm not sure this counts." And he's like, "What do you mean? We got the prize." And she goes, and I love this point. He goes, "You were given the prize in exchange for calling the prize giver's girlfriend and saying," and I quote, "This is Mr. Miracle, and I can't escape noticing Hassan loves you."
Oh, Lord.
And he's like, "A prize is a prize."
Are these, those boxes, are they like
when you're
facial
taking
recognition?
Yeah, for like when you're taking a picture.
Yeah.
See, because he goes to adjust like the screen, and there's
so it's like they're in a photo booth.
Yeah, like they're set, or he's setting his phone up to take a picture.
Yeah, gotcha.
I love all the different ways that Mitch Gerads draws the scenes in these because it's just so. It's so great to see, but like you said, and pointing out, like it has that, like you're looking at through a phone screen kind of.
Well, but the reason I'm asking is sometimes it recognizes his face, sometimes it's both of them, sometimes it's just part of it. But there's the one right here in the middle where it recognizes like four different boxes. And I wonder if that is a message of some kind.
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't know what happens in this thing, but
I never noticed that.
Seems like it would be a thing.
I never noticed that, but there is something like that could be. There's things I've read this multiple times, and there's still things I'm like, oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
So they have this really nice. They leave the carnival and they're on this beach, and they have this very existential, like super thoughtful, deep conversation about
like in the Notebook.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like we're talking about like Descartes. We're talking about like he's having just this crisis about, God, if God exists, then he's the good. Like he's always the better choice. Like he's just going through trying to, without getting into all of this, because it's a lot and it's all very heavy kind of, it's him kind of like questioning his reality and trying to figure out like, what do I do? And
well he should.
Like, do I exist? What is real? What is not real? It's like this whole kind of just this existential moment that he's having there.
I think if you knew that was your last day, that you would naturally be that way. If you're not, then you're a psychopath, I would think.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why you're being executed. I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe. But there's things without God, I don't exist. And if I exist, then God, like he's just having this whole like just existential, just trying to figure things out and throwing, different I guess philosophers and stuff in there too when he's trying to figure it out.
Sure.
And then it shows the two of them they're stuck in traffic, headed somewhere else. And that's Barta asks him, she goes, "You said you could escape anything. Escape this. Our last day on this planet, and we're stuck on the 10. Like, come on."
Yeah.
They decide to go up to
Lookout Mountain.
That's essentially where they're going. And they're just talking about maybe we should have taken this. Oh, maybe. And she's like, well, at least it's kind of pretty with all like the lights here and stuff. And she's tearing up a bit. You can kind of see that.
Sure.
But Scott still just kind of has a sad forlorn face.
Getting to her.
Yeah. And then they get there on top of and they're looking out amongst all the city lights. And Scott goes, okay, I admit, I thought it would be better. And, she's like, why'd you think? He's like, I thought there'd be more stars. And she's like, yeah, well, we still have the valley. And he's like, no one finds the meaning of life in the valley. Like, what,
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, we should probably go home, get some sleep. And she just kind of rolls her eyes and is like, all right. And that's now you can see very well done where it's kind of finally hit Scott.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're both.
Yeah.
They've reached the end here.
Here's what I also love too, because it's bookended by this, and it's done two completely different ways. Because the first one, we have two, I guess, kind of sex scenes in this book, and the first one is done more playful, more adventurous. This one's more deeper, more emotional, and you can tell because it's Scott trying to comfort Barda, who is obviously breaking down, and then they have a moment. Yeah. So it's completely different than before.
Well, and during that moment, you also get another
you
one.
You do get a little bit of a
static
tinge in reality. Yeah. We don't know what's going on, what's there. And then as they're there, it shows him like they're asleep in bed. Scott can't sleep. Barda's out. And we get a dark side is because obviously.
Well, you get a boom.
Oh, you get a boom as he's laying there waiting. A dark side is because it's hit him. It's like that it's coming.
So that's the boom tube.
Yep. And he gets up and he's standing there shirtless. And it's funky. And he's like, okay, here's the plan. I got a camera crew downstairs. Before these young gentlemen escort you to your death, you're going to go down there and you're going to tell them like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Don't worry. It's all High Father approved. I got this. And Scott's like, yeah, I'm going to go get dressed. He's just kind of defeated. And so he goes and it's him putting on his Mr. Miracle outfit. And he goes, all right, let's go. And he's like, all right, Mr. Miracle, you look like a miracle. And he's just going on. He's like, here's what we're going to do. This time, with the help of the great deity himself, Orion the High Father, you're going to be able to, we're going to perform the world's greatest feat. And they're escorting him out. He goes, and then we just wait for applause. As Funky's still pushing the same agenda he had before. Sure. And about that time, you see a bolt of lightning go through one of the guards' head as it like kills them. As we have Kirby's kind of narration over it. You know him. I know him. Everybody gets to know him. A funky flashman. I'm saying this one too. It's because it's from the issue that we covered of Mr. Miracle. Yeah. That's why it's in there. The question is, do we need him? ? And it shows then the Cosmic Club come across and smack the other security guard across the head. And she just Barda has bludgeoned him essentially with that club. And again, I love how Mitch Gerads is really good at showing gore without having to show you all the gore. Like, she did some work with it just being the splatter there.
Yeah, she just beat the hell out of
And people. Then she turns her attention to Funky and she's going towards him. And she smacks Funky clear across the face. And you can't tell me this isn't a little heavy-handed nod in front of the cover of Mr. Miracle #1.
Oh, sure.
So, anyway, just a little bit. And she's standing there. Barda is naked, covered in blood now. And she just says one word to Scott, and that's stay. And it's just a big, badass moment of, we've talked about it before, of Barda coming to his rescue.
Yeah.
So now the two of them have decided, all right, I guess we got to go talk to Orion about, I'm not going to be executed. That's not how this is going to go.
So this is
issue 6. This is where we're going to close it. Right. Take it to the halfway point.
Okay.
They load the bodies of the two guards that they killed. Funky is still alive. You can kind of see him locked up, like he's in one of the traps back there, but he's still alive.
Yeah.
But the two guards that they did deal, they throw in the flamer, which is a machine that Scott has down there, and it just incinerates them.
Yeah.
Obviously something from one of his previous tricks, I'm assuming. And I love the way that they shoot this whole, put together this whole issue.
Yeah.
Because it is a very serious. Well, I'll get into it when we're there. Excuse me. So the two of them get ready and they boom tube to New Genesis to go talk to Orion. We get a nice little, like, it makes me think of Star Wars, but not necessarily Star Wars exactly as much as like the Family Guy versions of Star Wars where they're making fun of it, of like two stormtroopers just sitting there having conversations. These two gods are like, oh, but I love them both. And one of them was like, oh, stop it. Come on. Like, waiting for them to get there to be executed.
Yeah.
And they show up and they're like, Mr. Miracle, like, is that you? And when the two of them arrive, you would think that, all right, they're getting ready for whatever this fight is. We just see speech bubbles of, look at the kitchen. We don't need that much kitchen. And the two of them are like, all right, you guys halt. And then another one's like, I know we said we would cook, but we don't. Like, the two of them are having a conversation about the kitchen. And as soon as like it appears, you see those little discs that Scott flies on sometimes just decapitate both of the guards there. And it's a conversation between the two of them of Barda and Scott about their apartment. And she's like, we're not going to take classes at souffles on night. I can barely do an omelet. And Scott's like, but I like your omelets. Yeah. Like, they're having all these just regular conversations.
Yeah. Just as they're going through and eliminating people.
Yeah. And she tells them like, oh, we have a counter that has all that stuff. If we didn't have a counter, we wouldn't have that stuff for it. Like, and Scott's like, well, where am I going to put my magazines? Like, they're just having these real conversations as they're breaking through, because it's like them cutting through this giant wall to get through. You can see it slowly crack through before they appear on it. And he's like, I like my magazines. And the whole thing is them escaping through all these security measures that New Genesis has while they're just having just a plain ass conversation about all these.
Yeah, it's like a Mission Impossible thing with all the lasers and all the stuff.
Exactly. And she's just like,
I love the colors too.
Oh, it's so great the way they do it. I also love, and we haven't talked about the colors much too, but when he's sad and forlorn, they do a really good job of like the muted blues and just there's a very sad. And when it's happy and vibrant, it's a good job of being like bright and flashing. So it balances that really well. I love that as they're going through all this, there keeps being these like, warning, you are not allowed here. Warning, lasers will obliterate you now. And then like we see it happen. But like they swung a guard in the way of it, so it electrocutes the guard. It's things like that while they're still talking back and forth about it. And Barda's telling him like, we have too much stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, I don't know. Sometimes growing up in the X pits, I didn't have anything, and now that I can have stuff, I have stuff just to have stuff. Like I don't, they're just having all these real kind of conversations. And he's like, kind of like, okay, fine, whatever. Scott's like, but there's meaning behind this stuff. And he's like, she asked him about all of Oberon's cigar boxes he's kept. And he's like, well, I mean, but he liked those. And she's like, there's naked ladies on all of them. We can't keep them. Like, just these weird kind of funny conversations the two of them
would have. It's just regular everyday stuff.
As they're crawling through like vents and they're having to escape from tide dragons. Ooh. And
those are beautiful. Those panels.
Oh, the coloring of it.
Oh my gosh, they're underwater. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
See, and I love how even they keep it's a full page, but they keep the 9. Yeah. And in an aspect like that, it does very well of still feeling like a cell, kind of like big. A prison. Yeah. But it's still
that's true. Yeah.
Like he feels trapped and claustrophobic, but it still is able to give you a big full picture. And I just kind of love that. And the coloring is gorgeous. I do find a nice little, we talked about in the story how this is the fourth world is what they refer to it as. And the two guards are talking and one of them was like, so if we're the fourth world, what were the first 3? And the other guy's like, it doesn't work like that. And he's like, well, if there was a fourth, then there's a first world, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Do you not know anything about theology? Like the two of them are just having this conversation there. And you see like the color change behind the little water while they're there and they hear it crack and they both kind of turn around and go, huh? And the water just floods through.
Well, color changes to like a pink or a red.
Yeah. From the water.
Because it's blood at this point.
And it kind of comes through and you just hear, and it's Barda and Scott kind of fall through after. And Barda's like, so if we get rid of the stuff and put other stuff there, we don't need the closets then. Yeah. Like they're still just going on about this. And the other two are just kind of like confused guards just looking at him. And Scott's like, or she's like, my closet's not to need. And she's like, I know, but you were the one complaining. And he's like, I'm not complaining. Like they're just having this real conversation. And they just finally take out the guards that are there. Then Barda's like, and then what we can do is we can bring in the living room and turn that to another bedroom. And Scott's like, why do we need another bedroom? Like, my goodness, we already have an inflatable mattress for when we have company. Like, who's going to stay in this? Like, it's them battling all through this and they're just having more and more. And
this is just a daily married couple conversation.
She goes, you can handle a smaller living room. Because he's like, where are we going to sit? And she's like, we have too much space now. And she's like, yeah, okay, I'm not in a box. But like, I see what you're... And he's just like trying to justify why he needs this. And she's just like, come on, Scott. Like, warnings are where is this at? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't not like having space, so I learned to have space. That's what I'm talking about. Then the two of them are sitting there going back and forth. I'm trying to remember what all of this is with all these conversations. Why aren't you affected by it? Why don't you? It haunts me. I'm sorry. I got to remember in between this, they do have some development for Scott. Stuff that happens to you when you're a kid, all that bad stuff, it's a warning. Rejecting it or not wanting it or whatever, it's not the same as being captured by it. It's not, right? Like, I did not like having space. He's talking about now when she's like, why are you so worried about us closing in?
Yeah.
He's like, I like my space.
Yeah.
He's like, so I learned to like having space.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of all I need. And she's like, warnings are just people telling you what to do. You make your own life. And he's like, do you? Like, he's just kind of having this thought, like, do you make your own life out of this? He's questioning a lot of this. And he's like, why aren't you affected by it? Why don't you, like, this stuff haunts me. Like, it bothers me more than it does you, apparently, our childhood, it seems like. And she's like, what did Granny say every time? Every horror? What did she say, Scott? I love you. She said she loved me. And she goes, and you believed her? And Scott's like, well, my father, who is God, had just given me away to the devil. What did I know about believing? And she says, you did. You thought it was all love because of your father, who is God, because he showed you to expect love. And I was in the pit, and there was no God or father. I didn't expect anything. Granny's words were more noises among the screams. You don't believe noises. And it has that moment of where Scott's just kind of like oh, damn, because they've been having this conversation the whole time of like making all these things. And they're going over this pit where he's having to like tightrope walk. Yeah. And it does such a good job of showing like the change in tone of where it's silence then for a good while of him trying to process. I'm like, oh, I guess she kind of has a point on some of that.
She does have a point.
And he just brings it back up and he's like, so half a living room. And she's like, it'll work. They're having to deal with like a room kind of collapsing on them. It's all these just different traps that you would think.
That's so cool.
And I love the way he draws it because it gets smaller and smaller by allowing a little bit more white into the panel each time until the last panel is completely white.
That's super cool.
The art for this series is amazing. Like, I can't stress enough just how much I love Mitch Gerads' arts in the.
It just shows so much movement and intention.
I think it's not Vision. I think it's Rorschach. I could be off. It's either Rorschach or it is Vision. It's the one that the two of them worked on together. And the only sole reason I bought it without even knowing about it was because it was the two of them working together. Because I think it just works so well on this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're talking about, all right. She goes, all right, the blow-up mattress is fine, but I want a bedroom off the living room. And he's just like, well, what about our bedroom? And she's like, yeah, that would still be our bedroom. And he's like, all right, then who's living off the living room? Like, who's in the new room? Or she goes, next to the bathroom. And they're finally to light ray. They've made it through all the traps and they're finally at the end. I think you know where this is headed. Yeah. And she's like, it'll be nice. And he's like, who's in this other bedroom? Like, he just can't.
Yeah.
She's like, I promise. And they have this moment of where they're fighting light ray. And Light Ray kind of bests both of them through there, and it knocks them both back. And Scott's at Barda's feet, and he looks up at her, and she goes, Scott, so I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, to let him know. And that's then right as he's about to shoot her again, and she picks her wand up and kind to deflect it. And the two of them go, and obviously in typical form, I love this because this is them to me, is Barda lunges at Light Ray, knocks him out, and instead of Scott trying to go in and make sure he's fine, he just comes up and just wraps his arms around her and just hugs her so big. And she just goes, and I love this too. He just goes, I love you. And she goes, I believe you scot-free. Like, it's just kind of a nice little, but so he's excited, obviously.
Yeah.
He's just found out he's become a dad. And they get to, sorry, I have to pick it up.
No, I get it. Yeah. You're hiding things from me.
So they get to right outside Orion's wall.
It's like my first two marriages.
And he's telling them, what do I do? And the warning there is like, you are not allowed in here. Orion will now kill you.
Yeah.
And she goes, he's your brother. talk to him. And he's like, he's not my brother and he doesn't talk. And she's like, all you can do is try. Like that. If he doesn't, that's what he's like. And if you try sincerely and he still won't talk, you know, it says, she tells him to like cut his effing head off.
Yeah.
Like if you try and you don't, and he doesn't,
do
what you got to do.
Sure.
And he's like, hey, I'll get rid of the cigar boxes when we get back. Like he's just kind of like, he's just happy. He's got this huge ear to ear grin. And she's just like, kind of sounds good.
For the first time in this
whole series.
Yeah.
It's a moment between both of them. And also, like, I know we mentioned her eye color, and you can tell it's brown there, it's blue there. It changes back and forth. In the comics originally, it's blue. So it's meant to, I don't know if it's meant to symbolize that brown Barda is, because she kind of acts a little more in tune with her emotions, and she cares a little bit more for Scott. Where blue-eyed Barda is more of the comic book Barda that's the big, tough,
action,
like, acts
hero
more.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Like, she's the one that's always there for him. And we see blue-eyed Barda. It's just kind of funny to say. And she just sounds good. It's both of them sharing a very happy moment.
Yeah.
And Scott goes into Orion's chamber. And I'll show you here in a second after I just tell you what happens. Because the stark difference between one page to the next page is done so awesomely. And we see that there's something wrong with Orion. Somebody has got to him. Orion's dead. And like Scott, the color change immediately.
He's not just dead. I mean, he is destroyed.
But we talked about colors, how bright and vibrant to just boom right to the next of something's wrong.
Well, it's very red, pink,
and the
all
static
of that stuff,
effect
and lots
is all
of
back.
static. Yeah.
So and he's there and he's just like, oh no, what's happened? What do I? He's questioning. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
He came here,
but he also says, "What did you do?"
Because he sits there. He's like, no, Orion. Oh, Orion, what did you do?
Okay.
Like to Orion, like what did you do?
I thought maybe he knew who it was.
And then we just see a panel of Darkseid finally, and it says, Darkseid does not do. Darkseid is, because it's Darkseid there.
Yeah.
So Scott has come in to see Darkseid has killed Orion. And then Darkseid booms out of there. And we get the Kirby iteration again. What kind of world is it that spawns the gods of evil and the lesser beings with the horrible hangups as it kind of, calls through the apocalypse trap? And Mr. Miracle can't believe it as he pulls his face up and he's rattled. And like Barda's there and she comes in to check on him. She's like, Scott.
She screams his name.
What happened? And he goes, I saw it, Barda. I wasn't looking, but there it was. I saw the face of God. And that's how it ends, talking about Darkseid there. As he is now in one issue, Scott has become a father twice. Not only in becoming an actual dad, but he is now High Father and the ruler of New Genesis. He is the force to oppose Darkseid. And it has rattled him there to close it out. So there we go. That takes us to the halfway point of Mr. Miracle.
Friggin' deep.
It
really is. I mean, that's a weighty comic.
It is. I knew that's kind of part of the reason I wanted to do everything else with it, just because I don't know.
No, and now I see your plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I can
I just wanted to at least set up a little bit so we kind of knew where we were going, so it wasn't completely off.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But that,
this would make a good podcast.
It would make a good podcast, and that's why we're doing it. And I figured, obviously, instead of just having like one, because I could go on and on about this, breaking it up like this. I think I talked about 45 minutes, maybe a little longer about it, but it's just easier to break down an issue. So
I gotcha.
Things get a very serious.
I'm sure.
Not only is Scott becoming a dad, but he's also got to lead a planet against the devil, essentially. So
the devil who can just poof in and out.
Who can boom tube in and out. Oh, I just love that. Where I'd love the Darkseid does not do. Darkseid is. And then just booms away.
Well, since you played that clip last time, it really does kind of impact. Oh, this guy's a feeling. He's a thing. He's not a person. He's not an individual. He's almost like Legion. You know, that kind of thing.
And the way he can just leech on and latch onto you and stuff like that is. Yeah. So there you go. That we are now at the halfway point.
It gives me a lot more. That gives me a lot more.
Appreciation for Darkseid?
Appreciation, interest, all of those things.
Yeah.
I had seen Darkseid before, but I never really gave a crap.
And I'm the same way.
This is...
exactly.
This really fleshes out all three of these characters very well.
A lot. It has, and I know that other people have, and I know that I could go back and read them like more in depth, but I've read, we haven't talked about this much. For Christmas, I'd been asking for it for a while, but I got the complete, super nerdy, the complete Fourth World collection from Kirby. And so it collects all of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, all of the Forever People, all of the New Gods, and all of Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
So it's like, 70-something issues and 4 different books there.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've read through Kirby's Mr. Miracle, who is not all of it, but I've read a good amount, who is very much like a Kirby superhero, and he fits.
Yeah.
In the 80s and at other times, like we covered him some in that Action comic with Big Barda, both of them,
right?
Where they were both jokey characters.
Right,
like they were just used to, hey, this will be a funny story about how Superman's going to shoot a porno. Like they were just kind of, used for that. You're right. This made me not only love the character of Mr. Miracle and be able to relate to him so much more, but all the other characters in here. And that appreciation for Darkseid, where I knew like, oh, Darkseid's a Superman bad guy. That's all I know about him. He's a really evil dude. Where this makes me be like, oh, I get how Darkseid's evil as hell. Like I get how he could be, and it made me appreciate him a lot more. So yeah,
all the talent in the world. It took an enormous amount of talent to bring somebody like Funky Flashman in and make him an actual part of this serious thing that's going on. It just made him a jester, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's using him still. And again, he'll come back. Like he's going to be away. I don't think we'll get back to him until maybe issue 10. But I'll kind of tease a bit because it's not necessarily directly impacting the storyline as more as it's like, I think the two of them trying to, again, reconcile something. But they use Funky because obviously Barda and Scott have to go and deal with stuff on New Genesis, as he's God essentially, and they need somebody to watch after little Jacob. They named their son Jacob.
Well, he's kind of
Jack.
I don't know anything about the rest of what happens here, but I'm assuming he's kind of the new Oberon that is kind of his babysitter or whatever.
That's what he is. Yeah. So they end up naming where the next issue is Barda giving birth and stuff. So it's not going to, but they name their son Jacob, which is another tribute to Jack Kirby, whose name was Jacob Kurtzberg. So that's why it's there.
Okay.
And so they do have Funky. Yeah, while they're gone, he's the babysitter. So it's Stan and Jack together again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of used to do things, later.
That's cool.
But yeah, so I can't wait to get to the rest of it. We just got 2 more issues on this.
So do you feel like this thing is like the great unifier where it brought those two sides together? Or let me put this in the sports world.
Yeah.
Okay. So what just happened is Jimmy Johnson was just put in the Ring of Honor for the Cowboys, right? Because Jerry Jones finally agreed to it. They were in the same place. They were talking. They were friendly, all that stuff. But without Troy Aikman, that never would have happened, right? He was the guiding force behind that. I kind of see these guys as the guiding force behind getting these two, not physically together, but getting these two worlds kind of combined finally.
And that's the thing, because unfortunately, Kirby passed away in the early 90s,
right?
94,
right?
So this is 2017. So we're talking about nearly 20 years later, and I think Stan passed away not too long after this either.
Yeah, it wasn't too much.
But I think I think you're right. I think it's kind of, if anything, it is the way I view it is it's Tom and Mitch and everybody who worked on the book, or whoever idea it was to do it.
Yeah.
The way I view it as it's them trying to be like, hey, it's okay. Like we can appreciate. I don't know. It's giving Kirby the credit he deserved from the person that he, I think, wanted it from the most.
November 2018 is when Stan passed.
Okay. So it was about a year. This went from 2017 into 2018.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, actually, because it happened in issue 10. I don't know if Stan even saw the issue that they had with them in there.
And I don't know if this is deep enough or this is even applies here necessarily, but the word on here is miracle also. Yeah. So, I mean, that does play both sides.
That is true. You know what? Here, I'll show a bit, and we're going to cover it again when I get there, and I'll probably tear up like a baby when I get there too. It gets me every time, but it's when Funky.
That's a great Darkseid picture.
There's some great stuff in there, but like Funky is the babysitter, like we talked about, and there's a part here where they come back, and I think they're setting up for his. It time jumps some throughout the series, and they're setting up for a birthday party, and it's for his son's birthday party.
Okay.
And he's telling him like, hey, he goes, he's just trying to like look for advice from Funky. And again, we'll cover it when we get back to it again. I'm going to do it without giving away any spoilers, but it just talks about the Jack Kirby kind of Stan Lee stuff there. And he's like, he's looking for advice, and he's telling like, I'm a god. I'm supposed to know how to do things. I don't know how to do anything. And Funky tells him, boss, ever tell you the story about that one god, the star-eating god, which is obviously kind of a reference to Galactus in the Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's just kind of like, no. And he's like, all right.
In a DC comic.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, all right, well, there's this star-eating god, and he has this helper, a dog who was sent before him to kind of help him find stars, right? And he's like, the golden retriever. The golden retriever is a implement for the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, what? Where is this from, Funky? Like, where are you making this up? And he's like, me and Jacob came up with it together.
Oh, that is kind of cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to try to.
Yeah,
and he's like, we have story time every day, making up stories.
Yeah.
Smart kid.
Yeah.
And he's like, great imagination.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good, man.
And he goes, Funky. He's like, he can say like, he can say like 6 words. Like he's a year old.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really trying
You're okay,
to.
yeah.
And he goes, they even do the whole thing where like, Stan would give nicknames to like Sturdy Steve.
Mm-hmm.
He tells him, he's like, Genius Jake doesn't have to talk. Funky talks plenty.
Oh, that's cool.
He provides all the imagination. I just do the words.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so it's a nice little.
Yeah. That is like the miracle that everybody was looking for.
Exactly.
And that's what I was getting to with the word miracle. I mean, that is how they tie it all together.
Yeah.
Huh.
Sorry.
No, you're good, man. It's great that it tackles you so bad.
It does.
Like that. I mean,
I don't know. I might be
that's
trauma. I might be trauma dumping in a way, or at least bonding with this on some of it.
I got you. Sure.
There's a lot of stuff in my life,
sure,
in general that I relate to this.
Yeah.
Not just. I'm not talking about just like Jack and Stan, but the whole Mr. Miracle comic in general.
I get it.
And that's why it's so big. But yes, like that part.
I didn't ask, but I assumed.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
And like
as much as you love this, there has to be a serious tie here,
But that's the way that they did the reconciliation. Like they talk about it a little bit more.
It's really good.
It is. It just really hits home the right way. And so like we'll get to it a bit more.
It's just so thoughtful.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's just so thoughtful.
Yeah.
It could have been an easy like one-off kind of thing or whatever, but this is just very, very thoughtful. Yeah.
And I think it just kind of it just gives the relationship that even if it's not, and it's weird because I don't even know if it's what the two of them wanted.
Yeah, sure.
It does feel like it's fan service in a way of like,
it does.
I think the people who love and respect both of them.
I think this is more artist service, right? I think this is more service to the people in the industry than anything else because it's like, as a kid in 2017, you don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this is more like let's bring these two worlds together and kind of end this debate.
Exactly.
This lifelong debate kind of
thing. I
thing.
like that of where it's like, another thing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So haven't looked at all these. I think these are just like fan drawings of stuff.
Yeah, I like the old marker things back there. That's kind of cool.
Oh, it's cover sketches. Oh, there's one. They made Tom King. I bet you that's what this is. So Tom King cannot do covers. But as a joke before for April Fool's Day and stuff for DC, like he's done a Batman cover and he's like, this is Batman, sorry. And like they'll print it as the cover. I wonder if these are some of just because he's the writer.
Like
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But still, and then some of these are just like, different. I love the veggie tray one. Anyway, there's just so much great stuff. But the thing is that we talked about that I've learned a lot and I just when it comes to creating comic books of how the relationship works between like artist and writer and how you essentially, the Marvel method was just Stan essentially telling them, hey,
do this thing,
and then they would flesh it out and do it. A lot of times now you'll get like full script where they'll send to them so the artist knows. And sometimes some people like apparently to work with that way of just like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And it gives the artist a little bit of freedom. But there's a lot more communication there now than there used to be.
Well, it gives them a peek into the future too, because a lot of these guys, you couldn't have done something like this in the past because there was no looking forward to the future part.
Exactly.
Because you didn't know.
Exactly.
You were only given what was happening in that one book.
Yep. All right.
All right.
There we go.
Fun.
Yeah.
Good job.
Probably talked way longer than we needed to, but don't worry. We're not done talking about it. We still got 2 more parts on this. All right. As always, we appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen. Make sure to check out the other Rogue Media Network family of podcasts. Great stuff out there.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
And until next time, stay safe, everybody.
Golly con.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.